Viewer discretion is advised for this educational documentary. Welcome back to CASE Documentaries. I bring you true crime, disturbing stories and other things that you may later regret knowing with regular uploads every week. Please do join the CASE family by hitting subscribe now and turning on notifications. Thank you so much to all of my patrons. If your name is on screen right now, then you're a legend. Our love and respect goes out to all those that knew and loved Therese and all those affected by this dark case. Therese Johansson Rojo was born on June 17, 1993 in Sweden. As a teenager, she found herself entangled in a web of toxic relationships. She was known for her outgoing and cheerful personality. She lived in a town called Stureby, and she documented her life in a personal blog. This blog made her quite popular among her friends. This popularity also attracted the attention of 16-year-old Tim Vreged. On May 13, 2009, however, her name became a source of contention. In her circle of friends, rumours swirled that she had shared a kiss with Tim on May 2, 2009. However, Tim was already in a relationship with 16-year-old Tove Lind. According to some friends of Tim and Tove, Tove was the one pulling the strings in their relationship. She was known to be very controlling and did not let her boyfriend spend time with others. One of Tim's friends said that since the two started dating, he never really got the chance to meet up with his old friends anymore. The conflict between the couple reached its peak as Tove, driven by jealousy and anger, confronted Tim at his school. This resulted in an argument that grew physical, and Tim was left injured. Their relationship, which began in 2007 when they were just 15, had always been tumultuous with infidelity on both sides. They were both involved in a local church, but their behaviour didn't necessarily reflect those values. Tove's overbearing nature strained Tim's relationship with his friends. Therese, who had recently ended her relationship with a guy called Gordon, was actually linked to the couple's turmoil by mistake. It seems that kiss had never actually happened. During the Swedish tradition of Valpurgis night, a celebration of spring's arrival, Therese and her friends threw a party in the woods on May 1, 2009. It was here that Tim and Therese shared their first kiss, and this was when the real troubles truly began. Little did Tove know that this was the fourth time that Tim had betrayed her trust, and the truth came to light around 2 weeks later on May 12th. This was the day after Tove's birthday. At first, Tim denied his actions, but he later confessed through a text message. This was sent on May 13th at 10:41 p.m. In a desperate attempt to reach Tove, he made 16 calls, leaving voicemails, and even sent her an email. He was expressing his deepest remorse and longing to make amends and get back together. The email translated read as, "I feel so awful right now. I don't know what to do. You have no idea how much I miss you. I mean it when I say I would kill someone. If you were to leave me right now, I would die. I love you above all else. I need you back in my life because you are the kindest, most amazing person in the world." The exchange continued with Tim and Tove texting each other during class. Tim was begging to meet her in person. Tove's response was harsh, but maybe rightly so. She was filled with anger and resentment. She questioned his worth and his loyalty, trying to use her words to injure his self-esteem. She said, "Don't forget, you're worthless. Worthless. Nobody likes you. You pig. You effing pig. And why don't you answer, you effing creep? I have an idea. Next time you're gonna cheat, why don't you pick up Linda? You're both ugly and disgusting. Smiley face," Tove wrote. Their teenage relationship had reached a breaking point, teetering on the edge of pure hatred. But as time passed, Tove managed to regain some composure. She began expressing her feelings more clearly, saying, "You just care about yourself, and you never keep your promises. Sorry, but I just don't trust you. During this period, Tim persistently contacted her multiple times a day. He gave the impression to their friends that they were going to get back together. However, behind the scenes, a much darker plot was beginning to unfold. These dark conversations began around May the 15th and extended until May the 23rd. Tove, in her deep anger and pain, demanded something horrifying from Tim. She wanted him to take Therese's life, the girl with whom he had cheated. Tim had previously said he would do anything to prove his love, and this included taking a life. Tove made it clear that unless he did what she asked, there was no chance of them ever getting back together. On May the 26th, Tim left his house to confront Therese. He reached her address via the metro after looking it up online. Whilst waiting for Therese to return home, he continuously called and texted Tove. His true intentions at this time were still unclear. His initial plan was to catch Therese outside her home, but he had no real concrete strategy. Panic set in when Tove stopped responding to his calls and texts. Tim grew more desperate. He wrote, "I'm panicking. Please just answer me and I'll stay until she gets here. I can't do it otherwise." Tove promised to call soon, but never did. Tim eventually stopped calling after 9 unsuccessful attempts. The following morning at 8:30 a.m., Tove sent a message to Tim and confessed. "I'm sitting next to her on the subway. I just can't take it any longer. She has to die." In response, Tim agreed to do what she wanted, and that same day he made his way to Therese's house once more. However, Therese was nowhere to be found. At this time, she was at her friend Ina's house. However, Tim had no way of knowing this and had no idea where she could be. Since Tove had once again not responded after 8 attempts, Tim once more abandoned the plan. Unbeknownst to Therese, her life was in grave danger. She carried on with her normal life. She went about arranging her prom and updating her blog readers about her new outfits. Her parents asked about her prom date and she mentioned her friend, Daniel. But her true wish was to reconcile with her ex, Gordon, and go to the prom with him instead. That night, Tim told his new plan to Tove through a text message. It detailed a horrifying scheme. He wanted to lure Therese to search for a hidden bottle of vodka, and then when they were alone and she was vulnerable, the attack would take place. However, it seemed that Tove was still ignoring his texts. This left a sense of foreboding and tension hanging in the air. Tim seemed to be growing more and more desperate. On the following morning at around 8 a.m, as Therese was on her way to catch the bus, Tim emerged from hiding among some bushes. He made up a lie about owing some people some money and being late in repaying them, so therefore he needed to retrieve a bottle of vodka that he had previously hidden in the underbush as a substitute for the money. Tim asked Therese for her help in finding it and they ventured into the bushes together. However, this plan was interrupted when Theresa's friend Ina called out to her from the nearby bus stop. She warned that they needed to board the bus immediately if they did not want to be late for school. Unable to help Tim any further, Therese rushed to catch her bus. But the weight of her decision weighed heavily on her throughout the day. Meanwhile, Tove and her family were away on a weekend trip to Paris on May the 29th. Tove told Tim that she no longer trusted him. She now insisted that she do the deed before she came back. In response, Tim shared details of his weekend plans. However, he now made no mention of intentions to harm Therese. As Tove asked him whether he had done it, Tim responded that he hadn't found the opportunity to do so yet. On June the 1st, Tove messaged Tim again, impatient and angry. She asked him why he hadn't been in touch as promised and if he had done it. Her frustration and hatred poured out through her messages. She accused him of being untrustworthy. She even implied that he was with Therese at that very moment. To her surprise, the response she received was not from Tim, but from someone else. Tim left his cell phone at my house. This is Ola. Tim had left his phone at his friend Ola's house. Intrigued by the content of their text conversation, Ola chose to read it. He found the messages unsettling enough to jot them down in a notebook. He later shared this text conversation with his brother Max, and the two of them discussed it privately. However, they chose not to disclose these details to anyone else. The plan was hidden in plain sight and now known to 4 people. On the evening of June the 2nd at 9:10 p.m, Tove texted Tim, giving him an ultimatum. She said if he hadn't carried out you-know-what within the next 2 hours, that their relationship was officially over. Tim begged for more time, asking for an alternative method to prove his commitment. Tove was growing more reluctant and skeptical, but Tim assured her he would carry out the plan in time for the prom. However, at 12:18 a.m. on June the 2nd, Tove sent her final message to Tim. The message read, "Until you do it, we are nothing." And after that, she stopped all communication with Tim. On the evening of June the 6th at 7 p.m, Tim, Max and Ola gathered at Tim's friend Dennis's house to watch some football. The 2009 graduating class with over 100 students had planned a celebration later that evening at Hotbacken. This was a large forested hill that had once been used for ski jumping contests. At 7:16 p.m, Tim sent Tove a text message saying, "I'll do it then if she is there tonight. Otherwise, I'll find out where she is. I'll see you later. Kisses." Tove once again did not respond. Around 9 p.m, Therese, along with her friends Ina and Felicia, arrived at Hotbacken. She brought a bottle of magic crystal vodka with her, and although she initially seemed to be acting normally, chatting and enjoying herself, the effects of the vodka left her feeling dizzy. Tim, who had just arrived with Dennis and Max, chose not to drink and appeared to be in a foul mood. While sitting on a rock on the opposite side of the glade, he made a comment about Therese, mumbling to Dennis, "I want to punch her in the face to remove her makeup, so that everyone can see how ugly she is." At 10:29 p.m, Tim sent a text message to Tove. It said that he was going to send her a message as soon as it was done. He told her not to turn off her phone and to call him immediately. Tove once again did not respond to his message. However, half an hour later, she too arrived at Hotbacken with friends Olivia, Gordon, Rasmus and Daniel. Tim pulled her aside for a brief conversation. This conversation left Tove feeling disturbed. Following their discussion, she and Olivia decided to leave Hotbacken and head towards Olivia's home for a sleepover via the metro. This meant that they avoided the unfolding events at the forested hill. At around midnight, Therese told her friends that she needed to use the restroom. She then headed off into the forest. Unbeknownst to her, Tim also left the gathering and ventured into the woods. However, Tim left in a different direction, but he then circled back, trying to find Therese. After a few minutes of searching in the darkness, he saw her beneath a cliff. He told her that he needed to speak with her. Still under the influence of alcohol, Therese sat down on a rock. Tim then picked up a log and struck her on the side of the head. However, this rotting log broke easily, splintering into soft pieces. As Therese attempted to rise to her feet, she cried out, yelling, "What are you doing?" Tim, however, forced her to the ground. There he lay on top of her and wrapped his arm around her neck. This created a form of chokehold. Despite her struggling, he tightened his grip on her neck. Eventually, she was left unconscious. However, Therese was still breathing, so he now looked for a stick in the dark and used it to press down on her neck, crushing her windpipe. After several minutes of applying pressure, he let go, although he still couldn't be sure that she had truly stopped breathing. To confirm, he kicked her in the stomach twice to see if she would react, but she didn't. After this, he fled the forest and returned home, leaving behind a horrific and tragic scene. The disappearance of Therese deeply worried her friends, and when she failed to return after heading into the forest, they began searching for her. Ina and Therese, who were having a sleepover, were to be picked up by Ina's mother. So it was unusual for Therese to leave without informing anyone and leaving her purse behind. Her friends then spent 45 minutes walking through the woods, calling her name, but they couldn't find her. They then reached out to Tim and Tove through calls and text messages, desperately hoping to find Therese alive and well. After another 10 minutes of fruitless searching, the friends decided to call the police. And that is when Daniel, Rasmus and Gordon made the grim discovery of Therese's lifeless body in the bushes near a trail. They called out to the others, everyone rushed to the scene. Max's parents, who lived nearby, called 911 and arrived at the location. CPR was performed in a desperate attempt to bring Therese back to life. However, this was far too late. On Saturday, June 7th at 6:15 a.m, Tim was arrested at his home. Tove was also taken into custody at around 9:30 a.m. from Olivia's residence. At first, both denied any involvement in the murder. However, on June 10th, Tim confessed to his priest that he was the one who had taken Therese's life. He said that Tove had told him to do it, and the police discovered text messages that supported his claim. During questioning, Tove said that she never had any genuine intention for Tim to kill Therese. Her motive was to end the relationship, saying that Tim would not accept a simple breakup. In an attempt to save herself, she devised what she believed was an impossible challenge for Tim. Driven by their Christian upbringing, she couldn't fathom that Tim would actually commit a murder. Her plan was that, when he eventually failed, that she would finally be free from him. However, the judge did not accept her explanation. Tove was sentenced to 4 years in a juvenile jail for soliciting murder. Tim, on the other hand, was found guilty of murder. He received a 4-year sentence in a juvenile correctional facility. Both teenagers were expected to be released in the summer of 2011. This case had a significant impact on Swedish society. It prompted a newspaper to launch a campaign called Glöm inte Therese, or Don't Forget Therese, on June 12, 2009. As part of this campaign, money was raised to support the organisation BRIS, which works to help children in crisis. Although I'm sure this is small consolation for Therese's family. Do you think the punishment fits the crime here? What do you think can be done to avoid something like this happening again in the future? Please do let me know down in the comments. Be careful out there, and I'll see you soon.